It's Monday again,
Ooh, there is. The day off on Monday, Labor Day. Very nice.
and we never take a day off from the things that we love to do we?
No, we don't. No, sir. It's not a day off, right? It's a day off for the stuff that we don't want to do. But yeah, of course, we make time for the things we want to do.
Hmm. Yeah, it's cool. Our topic today is the lifestyle map, and I was having this conversation the other day, and we were talking about how it's easy to train on your best days, and it's optimal to train on your worst days, the days you really don't want to train. Um, and I find there's a lot of psychological and mental value and benefit to that.
Hmm, interesting. Share more.
Well, I find that when we can still do the things that we need and want to do to prepare us for the life that we want to do, especially in our worst days and our worst moments, it creates a certain level of unshakability. And it also reminds us that we don't have to put our goals on hold for tomorrow. We can do something now. And
Hmm,
what's required is what does it really look like? What can it really look like right now, despite it being like the worst moment of the day or the week or the year? Um, what does it look like right now? And how can I modify and adjust my training to
hmm.
reflect where I'm at, not burn myself out, rather, but create sustainability around it? And as we've talked about, the topic of the day is the lifestyle map. And I believe that the lifestyle map does exactly that.
Very cool. What comes to mind is like a gear system. So, first gear is high torque, low speed, right? And then when we feel like revving it out and like really going fast, we could bring it up to fifth or sixth gear and really punch it out. But we could kind of trottle along and like still get where we're going in first gear on those days we got to just take it easy, and those are like, hey, we practice our positions, when it comes to twice as fit, just going to practice my posture and my positions. I'm not going to do anything too crazy today. And then you get to sixth gear, it's okay, I'm going to do some heavy high spinal hygiene today. Get active, get a little sweating.
Hmm. Yeah. And the lifestyle map affords us the opportunity to check in with ourselves right now in a simple and quick way so that you can start to be like, okay, where am I right now? And what does that look like? Do I want to be in first gear, sixth gear? Where am I? Where do I want to go? And how am I going to get there?
Mm, very cool.
So the lifestyle map, as you know, because I know you went through with your training, this is the lifestyle portion of the movement and lifestyle services that Sean and I and we provide with Twice as Fit. And as we know, everything is movement. Your movement is an expression of your life. And the lifestyle map consists of 8 essentials. And these 8 essentials are the pillars of what it means to be human. So these are purpose, knowledge, relationships, rest, prayer, meditation, nourishment, getting outside, and movement. And the simple activity to take inventory is to go through each of these 8 essentials, write down where you're at with them right now. So this is establishing where we're at. And then after you've done that, you ask yourself 2 questions to each of those sections and what you wrote down. Is it working? Does it make sense? Now, if the answer is no to either of those, this is a time to reevaluate. And how we reevaluate is we look at what we want to change and we ask ourselves, what's one small step that I can step into to show up and shift it? So
Mm,
it's like I acknowledge where I'm at, then it's like, okay, this is where I actually want to be. And then the small action step or the small change, the small behavior change showing up, that's actually us stepping towards where we want to go.
Mm, mm, yeah. And it's funny, I was thinking of I can't remember his name. He has a uh adage, the totalitarian tiptoe. And no, what you're describing is the opposite. So it's like just tiptoe towards what you want and just reassess everything, like make sure you're on the right path. Once you get on your lifestyle map, you find out you are here and this is where I want to be. As long as you're tiptoeing towards that direction, then hey, you're gonna have the life that you want eventually, right? And hey, maybe everything's fallen in line. You didn't know you had all the resources that you needed to get there like pretty quickly, but you actually did because you found yourself on your map and it looked like a big trail this way, but found a little shortcut through the woods.
Hmm. Yeah, you know, we live in a day and an age where we can get things very quickly. Um, and this very instant gratification is really simple to get things quickly. And I find it's really important that we don't get caught up in just the end result, the product, and really seeing that a lot of life is in the journey, the healing and the performance is in the journey. It's where we prove things to ourselves that we can do it, and we also
Mm,
create good behavior. And a lot of the times we're so caught up with getting the trophy and winning the championship that we don't even show up to practice every day. So it's like
mm,
mastering the basics and mastering these behaviors and just showing up to start is really the first step. So start small. Now, as I always mention to people, you can like get the trophy quick. That's possible. And if you do that, and that's what you really want to do, it's going to require massive shifts everywhere in your life, all of the essentials, not just one. So
mm,
it's important that we take that one step at a time and we really honor our process and where we're at, because then we know exactly where we're at on that map, and like then we
mm,
have an idea of where we want to go, and it's like let's enjoy the journey everywhere in between. um I also heard this recently too. It's like sometimes there's weird stops along the way, or something bad happens, and like a lot of the times it's like people like are like, oh, this is a sign to stop. But it's like just like a road trip. Like if I'm coming from Illinois and I'm going to California, and just because I see some weird drifters and in Nebraska on the way out there, does that mean I'm going to turn around? Or it's like, no, I'm going to
mm,
keep my journey. I'm going to keep my destination in mind. I'm going to stay on my journey, and I get to choose what I want to do with that weirdness, that anomaly, whatever we want to call it. It's a
mm.
part of the journey.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm imagining like a tight tunnel as well. It's like, man, I'm claustrophobic. It's like, well, like you're already halfway there. And imagine trying to back out of a tunnel. It'd be even worse than trying to go forward. It's like like it's tight, dude, but like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Just go ahead and get yourself through. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people might be able to sympathize with that some sentiment where it feels like you're in a tight tunnel. And it's like, oh, but hey, go ahead and keep pushing. That this is just one leg of the journey, and there's a lot more to come. And as long as you keep moving, you find yourself outside of that tunnel.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. The term that shows up is taking the island and burning your ship. And that's kind of like going through the tunnel, like the point of no return. Like, and what I've noticed about the lifestyle map and what it does for students and myself included, because this is an activity, of course, that I practice and do, or else I wouldn't teach it. Um, it helps you really see exactly where you're at. And then it reminds you of the journey that you're on. And it reminds you of the burdens that you're bearing. It reminds you of this responsibilities that you have. And you can look at it in a way where it's like, this is where I'm at. And when I'm heard and acknowledged, there's a sense of empowerment, even if it's kind of terrifying. And even if it's kind of like, I'm not really where I want to be, but I can always move to where I want to be. So it's like looking at the quote unquote, the ugly truth, it'll set us free, because then we can really acknowledge where we're at. It's like, okay, let's take inventory. Um, what do I got to shift? What do I got to change? in order to make that happen. And what's cool about the lifestyle map too is it reminds us that outside of us, there's a lot of perceived limitations and restrictions. And the reality is, at least in my reality, and this is my bold assertion, is that the only limits we have are the ones we put on ourselves. So as we
Mm,
acknowledge that, we realize that the only thing that's standing in our way of healing or performance or both is ourselves. And
mm.
that's very empowering.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing that's kind of showing up for me is there's a person that I used to kind of watch his videos, and gosh, I can't remember his name either now. I'm drawing a lot of blanks today. But he does like gun reviews and all kinds of really cool stuff. Demolition Ranch. And his intro, it shows him walking around with a phone and then his family kind of like playing around on the ranch. I was like, man, like that's kind of weird, you know? And then looking at like I judged him, and then looking at myself right now, my family's in the house and I'm walking around the yard with the phone in my hand, talking to it, and making it, having an interview, or like having these Monday Minds discussions. So it's just like, you know, a lot of it is like awareness, right? And things coming full circle. It's like, okay, I would have been judging myself. My previous self would have been judging myself, right? But it's like this is important to me, right? And what that person does is important to them, and just getting perspectives, And as we get older, it's like, man, I had a lot of limiting beliefs, and I was like, man, people shouldn't be on their phone so much, and so on and so forth. It's like, yeah, but there's good, like it can consume you, or you can produce with it. It's just a tool, right? A hammer can kill someone, or it can build a house. So
Mm.
that's what's kind of showing up for me.
Mm. Well, as we dive into the lifestyle map with the 8 essentials, so let's dive into that a little bit because I feel like that dovetails perfectly. And it's like wielding power and knowing the space and like the timing of things. So purpose is why you're here. This is your journey, and this is unique to you. And purpose is number one because purpose gives us direction. It gives us aim, and it also is our North Star. Because as we know, sometimes life gets topsy turvy. We switch jobs, we switch partners, we have kids, we don't have kids, we do all these things, we move cities, and our purpose is really our North Star. And that's why it's number one in the essentials, because all the rest of the essentials, they kind of like fall in a line, that hierarchical, that sequence, that order, that hierarchy, whatever you want to call it.
Mm,
Number two is knowledge. And I replace knowledge with belief because I believe what we know is ultimately what sets our beliefs. And they also say that knowledge sets us free. So I replace belief with knowledge because I find that knowledge is more of the higher order. And also, I know that this is like the other side of like the consideration of it is, religion and stuff, not bashing it by any means, but there's a lot of blind following without questioning. And I find that can get very dogmatic and turn things
mhm,
into ideas, which then our beliefs
mm,
kind of turn against us. So I found that knowledge, it almost is it's almost the prerequisite for belief. Like, so what we know really determines what our beliefs are. And
mm,
these are super important because if we don't believe in something and we don't know about something, we're probably not going to take action into it.
mm,
Like if you ask me, hey, Alex, can you fly from, Lake Bluff, and can you fly down towards me in a plane? Like, go pick up a plane. I'd be like, I don't know how to fly a plane. And my belief is that if I get into that cockpit, I ain't going to make it happen. So it's like, I'm
mhm,
not going to, I'll drive my car down to you. But
mhm,
like, it's hard to do anything if we don't have any knowledge or belief in it. And I noticed too, one of the biggest things health wise I notice is where people have breakdowns or dis-ease states is actually a conflict within their belief system and their knowledge. Like
mm,
doing one thing, but it shows up as something else. Like there's a certain conflict within themselves. And that leads to immune issues. And that's a whole nother conversation.
mm.
So I'm gonna go to number three, and then I'm gonna turn it over to you because I'm curious to hear your insight.
Sure.
Number three is relationships, and what I believe is that the people we spend the most time with, the people that we're around, we are a summation of these people, and they're a reflection of us. And I find relationships, especially with family, they're super important to be clear with and to be in good ways with. And at the very least, have completed and set our peace and be at peace with things. Because our family is who we spent most of our time with growing up. They're the people who guided us, they're the people who provided structure or lack thereof. They're the ones who put food on our table, and super
Mm,
important. And then in that microcosm, the macrocosm is community and friends and relationships, and who we keep company with is so important. And
mm,
as we do have our purpose and we have our knowledge base, like, and I am that vibration, that frequency, it actually attracts certain types of people and relationships. And I find that that's a very, very potent thing, especially with the law of correspondence: as within is without, as above is below. Um,
mm.
I'm gonna pass the ball over to Ian. Nice catch.
So, Alex, I want to thank you for these calls. Um, these are the first gear kind of plodding along conversations that are most in line with my purpose at the moment. There's nothing else going on. So, and that's totally like vulnerability, open book. There's a lot of what I find my purpose. I'm not doing much of it in my life besides these conversations. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to, be vulnerable and open with our audience. It's like, hey, aren't doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing, and it's going to reflect on your life. So yeah, there's a lot of things that happen, and it goes back to our beliefs, right? It's like, okay, I might have a lot of limiting beliefs, or it's like, okay, if I really was about my purpose, uh, like what's going to pay the bills? Who's going to feed the kids? And we have interests, right? And things that we like to do that might not necessarily correspond with what we're really here to do necessarily. So um, I'll have you guys know, like I just started my business. I'm going to be doing, it's basically landscaping, but a little bit of a more niche thing. And really, what I want to do ultimately is get into the permaculture space. And so my company's name is Gravel Gorilla. And then I kind of want to keep that alliteration thing going on and start another, spin-off Garden Gnome, and helping people start their gardens with the equipment that I have. Um, and just I want to get out and talk to people. So I used to have a lot, talk to a lot of people in previous work that I used to do. I used to be in the service industry, and one of the things, a belief that was set into me is like, it's only like kind of promiscuous people and just like flying by the seat of your pants people that are living in the, do service work, and that's not true. It's not true. You'll find a lot of that, but you'll find true professionals in that space as well, and you find people that know how to live life as well. So that's one of the limiting beliefs that I've taken on more recently that I'm kind of battling now, where it's like I'm okay with this. And then you touched on beliefs as well, and you were touching on ideologies of the different books, all the different holy books. And my philosophy is to lean into the glean, man. I came from that life. I was a Christian my whole life until the last 5 years actually, and but I didn't throw away anything that I learned. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and don't throw the principles and the wisdom out with the books either. Keep the books and lean into the glean. Um, and Alex, you mentioned relationships finally, and yeah, that's a really difficult one. Many of us come from, a lot of people are gonna, sympathize with this as well. Kind of rough backgrounds and relationships that didn't serve us well as children, and it's my job as a parent to try to change that story and uh, make my kids' lives and our relationship more appropriate for what their needs are at the time. And yeah, the company that we keep, man, it's it's humbling, very humbling. Some of the deals we make as younger people, and that can carry on. So, yeah, it's very prudent and wise to, pick your company very carefully.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of the times we look at rough upbringings and our difficult situations under certain lenses, whether it's anger, frustration, guilt, shame, resentment, and I acknowledge that that's an important part of the journey. And also, it's important, I find in my experience and my teaching, to look at these things and try to find the nuggets in them, as you said. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like we want everything to be all like shiny and all that, but also things that aren't shiny, there's also shiny things within those things too. So,
Mm.
it's I find that it's important, like you said, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We can learn from all of our situations, and if it's happening to us and it's persisting, then maybe it's something that we have to learn from it. So I find, it's important to glean the wisdom, and no one can tell you what that is either. By the way, which goes back to training. It's like no one can tell you what you can learn from that. That's up for you to decide, and that's up for you to be responsible for it. And that's what the
Yeah,
lifestyle is all about. It's
yeah,
about personal responsibility and like honoring your journey. So you get the acknowledgement side of it, of like who you are and why you're here, and also you get specific simple action steps. So it's very empowering. And then what's also cool too is if there are any holes within your lifestyle map, and there's maybe something that you don't know how to do or a tool you don't know how to use, you're very clear with it. So then you can ask for the appropriate assistance. That's the other good part, because it's not all about doing it alone, right? It's
yeah,
important that we the team and family, and then there's certain parts of the journey that are just for us.
yeah.
Um,
Just before you jump to the next ones, I just want to touch on what you're talking about, and I feel like action is what turns knowledge into wisdom. So it's like you had this bit of knowledge, and it's like, man, I know every move there is to know in jujitsu. And then you get on the mat, this is your first day on the mat, and it does not matter whatsoever. It's like, yeah, you might be able to hold your own a little bit better than like somebody that has no idea, but you're gonna get served, if you don't know your body and you don't have that like the internal wisdom and being able to take that implicate knowledge and bring it out into the explicate.
yeah, we're active. That's why for me, like passive treatments are complementary. They're not the mainstay. And so it's like life is active, and it's interesting because the next essential as we know, it's number 4 is rest. And while we're resting, we're even moving. The body's repairing, the body's healing. And this is number 4 because I noticed that we live in a very stimulated world, very work-oriented world, which isn't bad, by the way. I'm a fan of it in certain ways. There's no doubt about that. But also, we need to rest, and we need to have downtime and have that ebb and flow of work and rest. And I noticed that when we rest, it's number 4 because I noticed that when we actually are rested and we're replenished, we give it our all in our work, and we can actually show up all cylinders. And I remember reading this study, and not that I'm too big of a fan of studies, but research is of course helpful. But they did this study where they had these 3 test subjects, or 3 test groups, excuse me. And subjects A, they slept for 8 hours. Subjects B slept for 6 hours, and subject C slept for 4 hours. And they did that sleep pattern for like 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. And they then had them take a test. So not only did the people who slept 8 hours consistently do dramatically better, the people who slept 4 hours, they did dramatically worse. And here's the really interesting part about it, is that they didn't know that they did worse. They thought they did good. And this brings it back to the lifestyle map. Like, this is why we take inventory with it, so we can really be honest with ourselves and see ourselves as best as we can. Because, man, we hide from ourselves, and we do it for safety and security. And if we nitpicked every single thing that we did wrong and like perceived it as a wrong, it'd be tiring. So the body does that. But this is a great opportunity to look at ourselves and take small, massive changes to move in the right direction. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Very cool.
So number 5, this dovetails into it perfectly. It's prayer or meditation. And this brings intentionality and purpose to our words. And also, it helps us with these small breaks between the day. And what I recommend to people, I got this from one of my teachers, one of my recent mentors, like these prayer and meditation breaks, like 7 to 19 minutes, no more. Because if we go any more, like it messes with our circadian rhythm, and we start to get more into deeper states of like relaxation, and
Hmm.
under just not enough. So 7 to 19 minutes throughout the day. And so if we're aligned with our purpose, we know our knowledges and our beliefs, and we're in good relationships, we're resting enough. When we get to meditation and prayer, this is time to reflect and integrate and give space to things. And so things don't build up, and we can actually clear our vessel out and start from fresh, that 0 point, which then moves us into nourishment, which includes hydration, is actively and consciously putting things into our body. If you actually think about it, I mean, unless you're having sex, like this is like one of the times where we actually consciously put something into our body, and so if you think of it that way, it's really fascinating because we don't really put things into our body, do we? Like, so it's really cool. And when you think about it like that, it's like, oh man, like this is like my temple. I want to put good food in my body and like good nourishment and good water. Um, so it's like the purpose, knowledge and belief, relationships, rest, prayer, meditation, nourishment. There's all this sequence. Like it's all a sequence. They all build on each other. The next one is getting outside, and getting outside is something that I could talk about forever. But to keep it simple, and as we keep things simple here today, getting outside is fresh air, getting sunlight, getting feet on the ground, experiencing the elements, playing. They say that 94% of Americans spend the vast majority of their days inside. I noticed that, on a side note, when we can go outside, whether it's rain or shine, our body does a better job of acclimatizing. I noticed that buildings, they keep it really cold in the summer and really warm in the winter, and that does that climatization for you. And there's definitely something there. I haven't explored it too much in depth scientifically, but being able to climatize and regulate your body, huge component of health. Um,
Hmm.
and starting with morning light, evening light too, good for the circadian rhythm. You just feel good when you go outside. I spend at least a few hours outside every day, whether I'm working or playing, and I definitely feel the difference.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think of our fingers and our toes, so everybody can probably see that I'm walking barefoot, but it's almost like the roots. Like this is how we interact with the world. And as we touch things, we're rooting into and we're tapping into all these different things. So I'm tapping into the earth as I walk barefoot. And Alex, even when you are walking with your minimalist shoes, they have grounding features in there to have that flow, keep that flow going and keep you in a rhythm with the earth, with our mother. And I'll touch on where you started with rest. Yeah, absolutely. I find that I cannot focus nearly as well, and I get far more stressed out more easily, and I'm more irritable when I don't have enough rest. I can't seem to have focus, and I seem to be much more easily distractible when I don't have enough rest. Sorry, hold on one second.
Hmm? Yeah, yeah.
If you want to continue for 1 second.
Do, 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 do,
All right.
do,
Sorry about
do.
that. My daughter was asking me how much longer.
These
Yeah.
we have 2 minutes.
Okay. So, yeah, rest, absolutely. And a lot of it, and tapping into that is, the phone. It's, like I said, it could be a consumer, it could be a producer for us. And I think that's a major thing for us to all tap into. Is this consuming me, or am I using it to produce? And I tend to fall into the trap of it consuming me. So, everybody think of that when you go to sleep tonight, when you wake up, and it's like, okay, do I need to check my phone? or should I go out inside and take a walk in the evening, or excuse me, the morning sun? And when I go to sleep, should I just, you know, allow the sunset to sunset on my day, or keep this light in my eyes? So yeah, man. And keeping our temple clean, absolutely. Um, and the meditation, that was a big one. 7 to 19 minutes. I'm going to remember that, because that seems very feasible and a lot more accomplishable than what I have perceived meditation to be in the past.
Hmm. You know, man, like I'm telling you, like this is why it's all about the habits that we create and the small steps every day. And I notice that when we don't do these things, like they build up slowly. And this is kind of like the status of America. Like people get really sick and it feels like they just came on, but the body and nature is so forgiving. Like, dude, like it accommodates, adjusts, shifts, compensates for so long before it finally says, dude, what the fuck are you doing? I'm going to throw something so you get my attention. So, you know, again, you're touching on something beautiful about the lifestyle map is like when we tap in with ourselves every day, or however often you do the lifestyle map, in my opinion, at least once a day, and like taking inventory, like we do that reflection, we tap in, like, what did I feel today? Did it feel different than yesterday? Like, where am I? Am I in alignment? Like, when we ask ourselves constantly these things, we learn how to listen to the body. And then we can really figure out what health we need, and like where if we need some assistance and support, we can go ask for it. But we become more conscious to what we need and want. And when we're tapped into that way, no one can tell us better than us. Like we know better. Um, so it's such a conscious activity, and it reminds me too. It's like start small. Anyone who's listening to this, if you're trying to make a change in your life, like start so small, like you scratch your head and be like, "That's it." Like, yeah, that's it. Like if you want to take a daily walk and you haven't walked and like you don't have the time or whatever the hell the story is, it's like go take a 2 minute walk. Be consistent and show up with that for 2 weeks. Like do a 2 minute walk for 2 weeks and see how far that takes you. Like because we're so again so focused on the trophy that we don't focus on actually showing up to the game to actually play. And like because again, like we have this disconnect. Like as I'm like this is like coming to me right now. It's like we have this technology and we can move so fast. And it's like my colleague and I, who I trained, she's like, Alex, they pay us the big bucks because we help slow people down. And like we move so fast, quantum speeds. We don't need to speed up anything. We need to slow down, if
Mm,
anything. And it's
mm,
like when we do that, we can take each step very consciously, and no one can tell you what that step is. Someone can assist you and guide you. And if your hair is on fire and I'm selling you a glass of water, I can, you know, tell you what your next step is. But the idea is with the lifestyle map is you don't get your hair on fire because you're constantly reevaluating, constantly sharpening, constantly looking for things, constantly willing to be changing, constantly willing to stand firm, constantly willing to be wrong, and constantly looking to where you're right. And this really leads me to the last essential, which is movement, which is exercise and movement, physical movement. And, you know, it is number 8. And what's interesting, if this is number 8 and this is number 1 purpose, what's beautiful about it is you can get the infinity with it. And why movement is number 8 is because it literally connects all of the essentials. When you're thinking about your purpose or you're meditating or you're sleeping or you're nourishing, it's all movement. And number 8, physically, after we've done all this, physically our expression, that makes up and encompasses all of them. So number 1's not more important than number 8. Number 1 requires 8, number 8 requires number 1. So this is like
mhm,
that's the hierarchy, that's the sequence, the order. And as we look at all of those essentials and we really take inventory, we can really acknowledge what is my next step towards what I'm aiming at. And that's the
mm,
beautiful part about it. And here, what I'm here to do, what I'm here to help people do is I'm here to give people good tools and good information and great markers so you can go draw your masterpiece or you can go build your house. I don't want to build your house for you because then it's my house. Unless, you know, like we're building a house together on a community project, I don't want to build your house. I want you to build your house because then you're empowered and then you feel responsible, then you feel powerful. And like power requires responsibility. And that's why I think a lot of people are scared of power, because it requires you to be responsible. But here's the thing, if you have the right tools and you're accessing your power, you build your house of your dreams and you work through your considerations, you work through your yeah buts, you work through those stories. And I love the example of like going on a road trip. If I'm trying to go to California and I'm in Illinois, just because I run into weird people in Nebraska, just because my car gets a flat in Colorado, just because in Nevada I blow $1,000 gambling, like, are you going to use these as excuses to drive all the way back home? Or are you going to just say that this is part of the journey and I'm still going to get my fucking ass to California? Like, what are you going to do? You have only you, right? I'm going to assert that I want to get to California still. And all these things, that losing $1,000, running into weirdos in Nebraska, my car getting a flat in Colorado, this is all part of the process. And then from that process, what's cool is that if I'm smart and I'm willing to be wrong and I'm willing to change and I'm willing to fail fast, then I can look at these things and be like, okay, what can I do differently next time? Or what can I do the same? Like, how can I do things differently to mitigate that and not let that happen? And also, what did I do well so I can keep doing that, right? Because success leaves clues. And then I can get to California differently or in the same way, whatever your journey.
Awesome, man. Hey, wrap it up all in a gift box. Give us a TLDR. Run through them again so nobody can forget.
We got purpose. We got knowledge, relationships, rest, prayer, meditation, nourishment, getting outside, and movement. Thank you, Taskmaster.
Very good, my friend. Now that you guys have all been shown the 8 fundamentals, the 8th being the one that brings us back to the first. Yeah, that's your call for this week. Something simple. Pick something simple. Stick to it. Make sure it's in alignment with your purpose. Make sure you have enough rest to get there. Make sure you have enough nourishment to provide you with the energy to get you to that activity. And that's about it, guys.
One more thing, ask yourself 2 questions as you go through those 8: purpose, knowledge, relationships, rest, prayer, nourishment, getting outside, movement. Write out what you're doing. 2 questions. Does it make sense? Is it working? If the answer is no, write one to either of those questions. Write one small thing that you can step towards in the direction that you want to go. Something small, like showing up, 2-minute walk, 7-minute meditation, get to bed 15 minutes earlier, 3 minutes of exercise. Go with those for a period of time. See how far that takes you. This has been real. Thanks so much, Sean.
Very good, you guys. Thank you. Much love.
Peace.
Peace. Yeah.